Water pump on this 2000 Focus, and I'm just going to kind of go over a couple of things. There's another video on this, and the guy has some good things on there, and really you should just watch his video. But in addition to that, I'm going to show you a couple more things that'll help you get through the job a little easier, maybe take you a little bit, maybe just make it a little bit easier on yourself when you're doing the water pump on your 2000 zetec motor or newer. They're almost all the same. So the water pumps look like this right here. There's 4 bolts to put it in, and I'm going to show you a couple things about the parts that are really important, as well as because you don't want to put a water pump in and have it fail relatively quickly. You want it to last for a little while, and you don't want it to overheat again, probably in your time you own the car. So a couple of things you want to do is when he shows to take the pulley off, you really want to do that the first thing. You just take the cover off down below and then loosen these bolts up before you take the belt off. That's one easier, that makes it a little bit easier on you. So you want to do that first, and then sometimes you don't even have to, if the belt's not slippery like mine was, you can actually just loosen those bolts up by putting a little bit of tension on the belt, and put your thumb or something like that, and then just loosen the nuts up, the bolts up here for the pulley. So sometimes that helps a little bit to do that before you take the belt off. Another thing is when you get your new parts, I have a couple of different parts here. One of them I picked up from O'Reilly Auto Parts, and I will not put it on the car. And so I got it, and I was like, nope, not using this part. So I'm going to show you why. Okay, here's the one that I took out. Was a replacement one I did in about 2008. So it's been a while, maybe about 10 years. At that time, I changed the timing belt, and I highly suggest that when you do your water pump, even though there's no interference with the timing belt, and this is not an interference engine, as a preventive maintenance, that you actually change the timing belt, the serpentine belt, and the water pump all at the same time. We started doing this as a service in the early 80s when I was a mechanic. I was an ASE Master Auto Technician in the 80s and 90s, and I retired in around 93 from doing that. So we actually started the maintenance package of replacing the timing belt, water pump, and all the belts at that time. Nobody was actually doing that as a service maintenance, and now they actually recommend it from the factory with most engine manufacturers, or most vehicle manufacturers recommend that. So keep that in mind. You probably should be replacing your timing belt at the same time. Generally around 80,000 miles is when the good time to do this. But if you're just doing this just to replace your water pump, maybe on the side of the road or something like that, here's a couple pointers to look at. When you go get your parts, it's always best if you have a cast iron or cast aluminum impeller. Okay, because what happens sometimes is these start to slip on the shaft, and when you get the plastic impellers, they start to slip on the shaft, and you could have the outside of your pump turning, but the impeller itself is stationary or not turning as fast as the rest, and you're overheating and you don't know why. So let me show you a water pump that I will not use. Here's one. If you look here, this is a plastic impeller, and it's slid onto the shaft with it would just straight onto the shaft. Now here's the Gates version of the same thing. If you look here, the metal portion, because the plastic heats up at a different rate than the metal, okay, so what happens a lot of times is that plastic will heat up and then start slipping on that shaft. What they did is they have plastic here, then they have a metal, looks like a metal sleeve, but it's knurled. You see how it's knurled like that? That is probably going to be okay. So either find one with the metal impeller or one like this Gates one that has this before you put it back on. If you're putting back on one like this, you may have a premature failure. You may have something happen, that the impeller might start slipping on the shaft, and it could, possibly, be overheating, and the belt's turning and you don't know why. So it's better to be safe than sorry by replacing this. So just a couple pointers there I wanted to go over on replacing the timing belt or the water pump on your 2000 or newer Focus. And again, like I said, you should be replacing the timing belt at the same time. There is no reason to do it. And it's not an interference engine that I know of. It could be. Better check your model. Look on those websites that show which one's interference and which one isn't. But I believe it isn't. So anyway, but I would verify that to make sure. So, but if you're going to change it, you probably should change your timing belt at the same time, basically as a good maintenance item, because when the timing belt goes out, your car stops running wherever you are, and you're going to have to fix it. So it's better to do that as a maintenance than wait till it goes. All right, talk to you in the next video. Please like, share, and subscribe.